We do have an amazing show lined up for you. We just have a few minutes before our guests get in the studio. We're just going to let them get comfortable, and then we're going to kick on with the show. But if you are just joining us and you're wondering with the conversation that we're having today, we're going to be continuing the conversation on gender-based violence and the effects that domestic violence has on not just children, but the effect that it has on families as a whole. Because as we have said, this is a very important conversation, and we want to make sure that we give it the adequate amount of light and attention, and we want to really showcase it in the way that it deserves to be spoken about, because there are many things, and this is something that I've learned. There are many people who are experiencing this on a regular basis, and maybe they don't have the means, they don't have the platform, they don't have the opportunity to either speak out about it, or maybe they don't have the resources to be able to get the necessary help that they need to be able to navigate this territory. It can be a very grueling thing for somebody who feels like the relationship that they're in, the partner that they're in, the environment that they're in is one where they cannot escape. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. And today's conversation is one of those things that many of us never wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
We're actually going to be pegging in on a documentary that was released yesterday by the BBC, which is called Kenya's Hidden Epidemic.
Yes.
We've also had the pleasure of the person who generated this particular document joining us for this conversation,
yes,
including one of the parties who participated. As they walk into the studio, if you've not watched it or heard about it, as repeat, Kenya's Hidden Epidemic. And the epidemic is gender-based violence.
Yes.
And this was really seen during the COVID period,
yes,
when many of us were in lockdowns. And you remember it was short of being called a national disaster.
Yes.
Because even the president spoke about it. Some of us decided to flex our muscles to our spouses. Some of us went to the extent of not only flexing our muscles to our spouses, but flexing our muscles to our children.
Yes.
And that is why I had the conversation for the first hour. And I'm hoping that the people who are in the studio will shed more light. Welcome.
Yes, and I'm very excited to get into this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Before I actually introduce you, I just want to let our audience know the conversation that we're having today. As we mentioned, it is Kenya's Hidden Epidemic, a very serious and sober conversation that we are having here in the Adults in the Room. We have our special guests, Tom Odula and Njeri Migwi, who's in the building to talk to us about this epidemic, as the title suggests. If you are just joining us, we've been having a conversation around gender-based violence and the effect that this has on children. So having you guys in the studio to continue this conversation is a blessing and is an honor. So first and foremost, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And we really appreciate you guys taking the time to come in. But before we actually get into the conversation, I want to give our audience a bit of an overview of the BBC documentary and how it sort of came together. So I've got a little clip I want to play for you. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned and you're going to enjoy this, I promise.
The murder of world champion athlete Agnes Tirop in a suspected case of domestic violence has sent shockwaves around my homeland, Kenya.
Girls like Agnes get killed every single day. It happens in every single village.
Since the COVID lockdown, there has been a staggering increase in reports of violence against women and children.
You are rapist. We're looking at people who have been slashed, people who have been stabbed, people who have been beaten black and blue. They're running for their lives.
I want to find out just how deep the problem lies. And what can be done to remove this poison from our society.
Hiyo panga ilikuwa ya kichwa. Mtoto akaidukia akagonga na kichwa yake, mtoto akakufa hapo hapo.
Now, if you are just joining us, we are the Adults in the Room. That has been the introduction of today's conversation. We're talking about Kenya's hidden epidemic relating to gender-based violence. And we have very special guests in the building. Thank you so much for coming, guys. We really appreciate you making the time to come and have this honest conversation with not only us, but those that tune into the Adults in the Room. If you haven't been here before, if you haven't heard of the Adults in the Room, our focus is having honest and open adult conversations, everything from parenting to gender-based violence, and having this conversation is something that is very, very important. So thank you so much for being here. But before we begin, I would love to give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you each do. Please feel free.
My name is Tom Odula. I've been a journalist in Kenya for 22 years, approximately. And I specialize in what they call deep dive, like going into stories that are taboo or, you can't get them easily.
Yes.
You have to struggle and work hard to
And be on the ground in
be
many
on the
cases.
ground. Yes. Yeah. So that's what I do. A father of about 6 kids, and this is why this story is. This is why this story.
Jerry is shocked. She did not know that you had 6 kids. You should see her face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's who I am.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tom. And Jerry, please introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about what you do.
My name is Njoroge. I am the executive director of Usikimye. Usikimye is a gender-based violence organization. We run safe houses here in Kenya for women and children who've been affected by issues and matters of GBV, as well as key population. We have safe houses for key population. I hope you all know what key population means. I will not say it on radio.
I would like, is it something you can share? Key population, because there are audiences who do not know or don't understand what key population is.
Key population
Yes.
means
We have a bigger audience that isn't not even in Nairobi.
LGBTQ.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And then we do feeding programs in Soweto, Kayole. We have a daily feeding program. I think we give about 3,000 plates of food every week, as well as about 1,500 cups of uji.
A day?
No,
A day?
a week.
Okay.
Yeah. A day is about 500.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we do it 3 times a week. Other than that, we do rescues, we do rehomings, we do life skills for girls because of we have another entire pandemic that is sex for pads. That's another
That's
whole
true.
issue. So we try to mitigate those effects by training women who are mothers to these girls in starting small businesses so that they can be able to, just raise money, other than the fact that we also make sure that the girls around Soweto do get pads every month,
Right.
so that no girl should have to exchange sex for pads, but it still happens. We also deal with teenage crises, teenage pregnancies.
Right.
We run a children's library in Soweto. Well, a whole lot of things.
Right.
Jerry,
yeah.
what inspired you to get into that?
One, I am actually a survivor.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a survivor
From GBV.
of GBV, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry for that. And I'm good that you came out strong and you're actually holding and supporting other women. Tom, what inspired you to do the short film for Kenya's hidden epidemic?
It's a story that was not told effectively, I guess, and I wanted to, give it, shed some light into something that not many people talk about. It remains hidden in the houses, in the homes, and with the survivors. They carry this trauma with them. A lot of people go through this, but they don't speak about it.
Yeah.
And it goes into the very fabric of society, the family unit.
Yeah.
If it doesn't stop, then the society falls apart. Like some of the people we interviewed in the documentary, their parents had issues to the point where they even, it became like close to murder. Both parents. Now, how do you expect the kids to live together?
Yeah. Yeah.
From what they've experienced
From
or
what they've
seen.
experienced. And when the kids came together, what happened? Murder. The parents survived their issues, but the kids...
The next generation didn't.
Yeah.
So this is what inspired me for my kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I do have to stop you there. We do have to take another quick break.
Yeah.
But as soon as we get back, I'd love to learn more about the journey of actually shooting the documentary and maybe some of the things that surprised you when you were actually on the ground and you were creating the actual documentary itself. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, we are the adults in the room. We're having a very sober and honest conversation today on the hidden epidemic in this country, and that is relating to gender-based violence. Today is really about having open conversations, particularly on this topic, because it is something that is far-reaching, that affects not only you and your partner, but can go as far as affecting your children and the dynamic of your home. So it is something that you are not going to want to miss. I promise you that. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We are the adults in the room. In the studio with not just the Duchess of Ecola but we have some very special guests in the building, which I'm very excited to have here, particularly because of the nature of the conversation that we are having for today's show. Our focus today is speaking specifically on gender-based violence and the effect that it has on not just our society, our families, but also on children. This is an epidemic of great proportions, and it's something that through conversation we can not only educate and inspire, but we can help change the paradigm of this conversation in our country. So before we went on the break, Tom, you were telling us about how this process started for you, and what I would love to know is when you were actually filming the documentary, were there things that maybe you may have anticipated being a part of this journey of filming, but when you were actually on the ground and you were having these conversations, you were kind of quite shocked because now you're on the ground and you're hearing the stories directly from the source? I'm a seasoned crime reporter, and what that basically means is just going where people have been shot or killed or where there are disasters, dead bodies, all the time, every day.
So it was something I don't say used to, but you are accustomed.
I thought I was accustomed to.
Oh, okay.
But the victims in those cases, or the perpetrators or the suspects, are mainly young men or men.
Right.
Now, in GBV cases, it's children and women, the most vulnerable people in society.
Yes.
And that just broke my heart totally.
I can imagine.
I spent time with Njeri, a lot of time. And I'm in awe as to how she keeps it together. Because for me, the period we spent together, every day was a nightmare. I'd have flashbacks of what I'd seen. When I look at my kids and I see another kid suffering, and I keep asking myself, why? Why is this happening? And why isn't anybody taking action? And maybe from what I do, I could use that platform to inspire change, or to start a conversation that will ultimately help these people, because it's scary. What she does, it's amazing.
Thank you, Tom and Njeri, for actually standing up and doing something and making some social change. For Njeri, what are some of the triggers that have caused? Because you, from your conversation and your intro, there are a lot of GBV victims that you're involved in different areas. What are those triggers that cause these things in marriages or relationships?
Number one is gender inequalities. Whether you believe it or not, gender inequalities really play a very large role in domestic violence, where one gender, generally the male gender, feels like they are entitled to you, one, because they have paid dowry, two, because you are their wives, two, because the claim tradition says so. And so you find that inequality leads to violence a lot of times. Poverty, of course, but poverty affects us in a number of ways. So. Generally, unemployment, but really it is a lack of respect for human rights of the other person. Because if you actually saw, when Tom was interviewing those men in that Kiwanja, that is actually near our office, very
the
near
one in
our
Soweto?
office. Yes, that's the Jacaranda grounds. Our office is right next to Jacaranda grounds.
Yes.
So when Tom was interviewing them, that's the general prevailing feel. And if you actually read on social media and the attitude that the patriarchal kind of attitude that people have towards women, there's this entitlement that women should be A, B, C, D, and if they don't do this, then they are deserving of discipline.
Yes.
In which, when they call it discipline, what they're actually coaching the term is violence.
Yes.
You need to be beaten because you have a contrary opinion to how a man should be treated, which is like a god, and you're the one who's supposed to do this. So all these conversations, from the fact that we even make fun of Kutuma Fair and then it becomes a thing, but Kutuma Fair is a thing that led a girl to die in Eldoret, the doctor that died. And
Yes, I remember that.
you remember that. So when you start looking at it, it is we do not look at women's life with the respect and accord that they deserve. I can tell you, this year, so far, we've lost 5 women to GBV, recorded cases.
And it's just January.
It's January.
My Lord. Yeah, and I think the thing that I struggle with, and I know, Tom, you mentioned this in the documentary, the thing that I struggle with is being able to go from being someone who wants to build a family with this person to now it transforming into it being a case of domestic violence in the home. And in the case of how the documentary played out, hearing those voices from those men and realizing that this is very much a cultural ideology, where is it that you think how is this manifested? How have we gotten to a place where I can love someone one day and then get to a point where now I'm placing my hands on this person or I'm manipulating them emotionally or whatever the case might be?
I guess for many, it's something they do even without thinking, because they were raised in homes that were very patriarchal.
Right.
I mean, if you remember, I remember growing up, it was common for women to wake up and cook for their drunk husbands when they stagger home.
3 a.m.
3 a.m.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And that changed. At that time, that changed. Yeah. I remember several of my aunts sitting down and saying, no, this is nonsense. So now you have men who are raised that way, thinking they're entitled that way. And you're facing a different form of the opposite sex, who are more enlightened, more educated, more conscious about themselves and their rights.
Yeah.
And when these two come together, there's a huge clash.
Yeah.
Just like rebellion.
It's like, it's not rebellion. It's just like, saying, standing up for your rights. It's
It's a
some
clash
The
of
women-
ideologies.
ideologies.
Yeah.
So the women are trying to stand up for their rights.
Yes.
But this particular men, because of being raised in a certain way or seeing certain things, they are not accepting
They
that.
cannot accept it.
And it's I think the thing that I appreciated about the honesty behind the documentary is, and I can now that you've explained it, I can understand why it's called a deep dive, because it's quite literally highlighting stories that many of us don't, like, we know these things happen, but we don't, if they're not close to home, we don't associate ourselves with them. But when it's presented so graphically in the way that it was, this is when we can really start to have honest conversations and see the world for what it is. Now, I do want to point out something that you mentioned in the documentary as well. You mentioned that the pandemic has had a very big influence in the rise of cases that have occurred when it comes to gender-based violence. How do you think the pandemic has actually played a role in influencing this rise in numbers? I think from memory it was 300%. There was a 300% rise in cases.
The first way is locking the victims or survivors and the perpetrators in one place, because you can't go out. So what it means, if there is a heated argument, you can't go out past a certain time because there's a curfew.
Right.
So you're locked in with a person who's a potential perpetrator in the same place. So the chances of violence occurring increase quite dramatically,
Right.
because of the lockdown. The other thing is socioeconomic factors, but mostly economic factors. Many people lost their source of income, and when they go back home, they find their family waiting for their daily bread, and this caused a lot of friction between partners, and sparked a lot of violence in the process, because the men are frustrated outside, and then they come into the home, you find empty stomachs who don't understand why there's no food.
Yeah.
Even I guess even the woman would be angry or not understand when kids are demanding for food. Yeah. So a jobless man, a hungry man is an angry man.
A jobless, hungry man.
He's
Angry and hungry.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So those are the two main reasons for me.
For sure.
Maybe Njeri can add, because she's on the ground seeing it.
Yeah.
Njeri, let's come back with that after
Yeah.
just this particular
I'd
small
actually
break.
love to hear what your thoughts are on it as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we do have to take another quick break, but we're going to be back with more conversation right here on Spice FM with the adults in the room. Do not touch that dial. We shall be right back.
Spice.
We have two very special guests in the building. A gentleman that goes by the name of Tom Odula, and then we have Njeri Migwi in the building, who is here to talk to us about gender-based violence. And we're very excited to have you guys here, and we appreciate the conversation and the work that you guys are doing to shed awareness and light on this issue in this country. So before we went on this break, we were talking about how we can go from someone who is loving to now becoming violent towards your partner. And I'd love to hear from you, Njeri, in terms of how you think this manifests itself.
Number one, as we don't look at red flags. They've been there for a while. The red flags. And I think most of us keep on ignoring them. Mm-hmm. We know that this person is changing, this person is different, but because we want to A, save our marriages, and B, stay married because it's a social accepted norm. So we would rather be in a marriage, however violent it is, than leave. So one of the things you will find, as Tom has explained, is now, especially during the time of COVID, is now these are two people who changed along the way, and their values changed. So we only used to spend a certain amount of time together. You'd come in the evening around 8ish, eat and drink water and sleep. So now the pandemic happened and things were locked down. And guess who is living together in the house? People who no longer have anything in common.
Who live very separate lives.
Yes, the only thing they have in common is maybe the children or maybe the house. And now you're together 24 hours. What really do you expect is cooking in that pot?
Yeah,
because
makes a lot of sense.
As a woman, I'm carrying a lot of resentment against this man, and just him occupying space is irritable to me. So probably I will say a word here, another word there. The man will understand. I will linger him, with songs. I'm just singing a song over there.
Like just a song that has just passed.
Yes, how come, how long.
It's not right.
It's not right. And the man is just sitting there and he's just watching his because Kenyan men, most of them don't help around with chores and just looking at you, with all the food, and you're asking, you happy chakula? And I'm just looking at you, and maybe you've even been laid down, and I'm thinking, you know what? I don't like this man. And this man just looks at me and like, I don't like this woman, and he just smacks you because you can't. So many women died.
Why do we have cases where many victims or many people don't want to speak out against gender-based violence in their marriages or their relationships?
As I said, number one, marriage is sacred, especially in this country. It's so, I don't know, you always feel like, don't you ever meet your aunties and they're always asking you, when are you bringing that man home? So that already tells you how much value marriage is placed upon by the society, by the church at large, the mosques, everyone. Like marriage is, I don't know, is so important. So that's one. Two, we look at GBV as a socially accepted ill. I mean, if somebody shoots you, everyone will be outraged. Have you ever seen when somebody snatches somebody's bag? How many people take the effort of running after the thief, snatching it, beating him, doing nini, and you're like, Allah. Now you be beaten. Come here to work with a whole.
No one cares. No one.
Everyone.
Asks.
It's not that they don't care. It's like it's their personal business.
No one wants to get too involved.
Yes, like wow, these people we have a saying here in this country, and I always say this all the time. Two people covering themselves with a duvet is none of our business. Because if I help you today and then I see you tomorrow with that man, I'm like, you know what? Shauri yake.
But usually we see them with these people.
But this is the thing you need to understand, that GBV is not like any other regular thing. GBV has something we call trauma bonding, where you're bonded with the person who is your captor, the person who is your abuser. This is somebody who loved you. This is not just a crime of passion. It's not somebody who came to your house and did things to you. No, this is somebody who you loved, and at one point in your life, this person made your world go round. You couldn't wait for them to come home. You couldn't even imagine that you couldn't hear their voice on the phone. Now this person has turned around. He's abusing you. He's beating you. He's gaslighting. They're doing all sorts of things, and you're like, what is happening to me? And so it is not easy. I keep on telling people, it is not easy for somebody who has been beaten, who has been done all these things, to just wake up one day and leave. It takes a long time before this person is actually able to leave. So when we say that, we keep on telling them, go back. They keep on saying, go back. Keep on saying all the time, go back and be with your man. What does the church tell us? Pray for him. He will change.
Let's go
Read
for
War
people.
Room. He will
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Do this. Or do what?
Pray. Be a prayerful woman.
If you are a prayerful, go to the gym. I mean, girl, you added on some weight.
Weight.
Maybe that's why he doesn't like you.
need to
Wow.
change
Or
your
umejiwachilia,
Yes.
and so on and so forth. So all these things are things that are meant to keep you at home.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
And so it is always the fault of the woman, because I've never had anybody tell a man, you go to the gym and change, man. That pouch that you're bringing home.
Yeah.
ain't
They
the
talk
shit.
about us, but they don't want to be told.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a
you
good
know?
point.
You see,
Yeah.
so all these things, it's always the woman who has to change. Be more quiet. Do not be so assertive. Do not be so loud.
Yeah.
You're too stubborn.
You're too stubborn. You know, all these things.
Yeah.
Like if you actually had what that man, one of the men actually said, now that I lost my job and I was home, he actually said it. Lazima ningemchapa kwa sababu yeye ndio alikuwa na pesa. And I was like, oh, what? Yes, so alimchapa so that asimee pembe. I mean, these proverbial horns that women grow.
Yeah.
And all I'm asking is, you see, now we've come to a place where we are saying marriage is 50-50.
Yes.
You
Yes.
see? So now, so that this woman doesn't feel like she's feeding me and doing so on and so on, and
Yeah.
my male ego is not bruised,
Yeah.
let me beat her down so
So-
that she will know that if she ever tries to raise it up,
She'll know who the head of the house is.
exactly.
Tom, what
see.
were your feelings when you saw that particular? Oh, actually, you were present. I saw on the film. You were present. What she's talking about when a man stood up, and not one but three
Yes.
of them majestically said, "One, I beat my woman so that one I can mark my territory. Another one, I need to tame her to put those pembes in check. Another one was like, no, I don't have a job, but I needed to just show my strength. And another one said about his grandmother, I don't know his mother, teaching him or telling him that a woman needs to be beaten once in a while, at least in her marriage, just to make sure she knows that you're sorry." How did it make you feel?
I totally didn't understand them. Because, you know, we're in the city, in Nairobi.
And
I
that was
expected-
actually in Nairobi.
In Nairobi, I expected better of them. But at the same time, I realized that a lot of efforts has not been put in trying to educate men on the value of the women or the opposite sex and how you should communicate instead of choosing to raise your hand, because even the men, when they have a disagreement, they don't go beating another man.
That's
Yes.
very true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why do they always feel, not all, but some of them feel the need?
It's a bully mentality, because I can do it, so let me just do it. Yeah. And for me, it really hurt me, because I grew up in a similar circumstance, but I never saw my father or my parents have those kinds of disagreements.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, where did, what happened to the society? Like, some people know what should be done, and others are just out there doing their own thing according to very old way of thinking.
Yes. Yes.
And even when you talk to the older people, they say this was not common. You know, the violence would be a huge issue. The whole meeting will be called between your parents, the village elders, and they will try and find a way for it not to happen again. But now, these men are carrying on with the same practice in a time when everything has changed.
Yes. Yes.
They're sort of stuck in a time warp. And then it goes back to our education systems. Why are we split apart when we get to high school? Men are taken to different boarding schools than women, or girls and boys are separated. At a crucial stage in life, adolescence, when you're learning
Each other.
and how to communicate with each other and how to value each other, then you're separated, and then you're put back in college when you just have time for 3 or 2 flings and then off to marriage.
And some people end up messing up when we are there.
Yes, because there was no initial interaction. So you're carrying all these things you saw with your father because you didn't have exposure. You didn't you didn't have a girlfriend in high school. You know, this
Or you
is
didn't even interact with any woman.
with any woman.
Or
The
young
only
lady.
interaction is letters.
Yes.
Where you can't really,
Yes, you're right about that.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, you can't really express
Yeah.
yourselves. You
Yeah.
have to wait like for 2 weeks for the letter to. I don't know how long it takes nowadays.
Yeah.
But I remember waiting there. You know, for
Even
your
a
letter.
month.
Even a month.
Because some schools are like, it will
Yeah.
distract you.
And-
so they
and-
kept our
like,
letters
yes.
for a month.
Yeah.
And you put in everything in that letter. You know, all the wongo you can master.
Yeah.
To make the other person impressed. But the reality is you don't know each other.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to communicate.
Yeah.
When there's communication breakdown, then violence becomes the answer for people who are brought up seeing violence.
Yeah. Thank you so much for explaining that. We do have to take another quick break, but as soon as we get back, we have a lot more of the adults in the room. Well, today we're talking about gender-based violence and how this affects our society. And we have two amazing guests in the building. If you are just joining us, I promise you do not change that dial because we have a lot more of the show to go. Don't go anywhere. We are the adults in the room.
Spice.
Are the adults in the room. We are not alone today. We have two very important guests. One that goes by the name of Njoroge Migwi, who he's here to talk to us about gender-based violence. And of course, we also have Tom Odula, who's here as a BBC reporter, crime reporter, who was actually the reporter behind a documentary that came out on the hidden epidemic in this country relating to gender-based violence. So we felt, given the conversation that we had in the first hour, it was even more critical that we have our guests in the building today to shed light on this issue.
Jerry, given your experience with a lot of victims in different gender-based violence forms, what do you think, or do you think the law or our authorities actually do take care of them?
I'm going to take that as a no.
Yes, and I'm going to get to you, Tom. Don't laugh, because I saw the short film. Yes, I was going to ask it. I
Right.
think you knew about it.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about our laws and our authorities when it comes
We
to
have beautiful law. We have some of the most beautifully crafted, beautifully
paper.
written, amazing GBV laws. My God. Sexual Offences Act, fantastic. Children Act, beautiful. Gender-based violence act, phenomenal.
Yes,
That's what it is.
just on paper.
Yes, because when you go to a police, and I'm saying this, and it shames me to say this. He's been with me to police stations on numerous times, things that were not even captured on the short film, and I can tell you for a fact, and I can even show you right now dozens and dozens of messages or calls where somebody tells you go to the police station and they tell you this is personal matters. Rudini nyumbani mwende msolve.
They don't want to touch or get involved.
No. Because you see the same thing I told you
Yeah.
about people feeling like our watu, they fight, they come to the police station, they are wasting our time. Because maybe the number of times that these people come fight, then they go back to each other, and that probably now they feel like, hizo ni mambo zenyu. We do have gender desks though, we do.
So that trauma bonding is so real that people don't want to touch such cases.
Yes.
How about you, Tom? What was your experience with the authorities and how gender-based issues are dealt with?
You know, without justice, there cannot be deterrence. And a lot of these cases don't make it, even just to the OB,
Yes, that's true.
because it's such a traumatic experience. And many of these police stations don't have the capacity to deal with victims because either they don't have enough manpower, they don't have resources. This is the truth. Beyond, like just the bad reception you get, these are the issues that the police face. You don't have enough manpower and you don't have money. And so they resort to doing certain things that really don't help the victims. In fact, the victims get discouraged from pursuing the case. It takes such a long time. I was with Njeri when she was pursuing a case. Was it 8 years? An
The case has been for
80-year-old boy who
Okay.
had been allegedly molested by his mother's partner. The mother works as let me just call a night worker,
The essential service provider.
essential service
Yes,
provider.
Right, right.
I like that. Yes. I'll be using it more often.
Yes, yes.
And the guy works as a tout. But at night, the mother goes to work and leaves the boy with the man. And the man turned the boy into his wife. That's what the boy said. It was
Actually, the boy was
The
three.
boy actually
Was
said
3.
this.
He was 3.
3 years.
my heart. I don't know. It got torn into pieces.
The boy said this.
Yes.
The boy said this, and I'll use his words. Daddy ananipendua, anaeka kitu yake hapa.
It is something that I've seen so many dead bodies. Too many for one person.
But you were not ready for this.
I was not ready for this. This it was like a shotgun blast to my heart. And the process, we were there at what time, Jerry? 8 or something, 7.
PM
We were
or
leaving
AM?
at 6 p.m.
Actually, no, we left at night. It
9.
was completely
9,
night.
yeah.
And you went there in the morning.
And
Yeah.
if Njeri was not there,
No justice.
nothing would have happened.
They would not have assisted this particular
Yes.
lady with a child.
Despite the fact that it's a child.
And despite the fact that we had all the proof from the hospital to everything to all the work, we had done it.
Yeah. So there are no resources that have been put in place, despite the president speaking about it. On the ground,
It was different.
things are different. And, there's a big disconnect between what the country's leader is highlighting and what is happening on the ground. Maybe it takes time because of bureaucracy, but I don't know. I can't speak for them.
Yes.
But there's a huge disconnect there.
Yeah.
How's been your experience, Jerry? Now that you, for example, you have this woman, she's in agony. That has happened to their child. I'm even just trying to digest all that you've said. You, as someone who's been, do you guide them through? Is it part of your organization? Do you guide them through this particular process, or do you have another organization that you partner with to help them through this administrative procedures?
I go
Yourself.
myself.
Front and center.
Yes. That's my fight. It's something I love to do. So that's what I do. I go to the police for the ones I'm able to, because
Yes.
unfortunately we receive calls from all through the country. And Tom can say if this is true. He's been with me for long. I receive calls throughout the country, 200s of calls, whether they come through a call center, whether they come through my personal line, whether they come on Facebook messages. I don't even want to open my inboxes anymore because I'm bombarded by pictures of women who've been beaten, children who've been molested, so many issues, and it's bad.
Yeah, yeah. I guess my question to each of you, obviously this is a fight that you've each chosen to pursue. And just before we go on this quick break, I'd love to understand how do you deal with the trauma that comes with seeing this and experiencing this on such a regular basis? Because I can imagine hearing these stories and seeing, as you mentioned, Tom, you've seen a number of dead bodies and sort of having that experience. How do you then, manage a lot of that stress that comes with the job?
I suffer from vicarious trauma. I honestly went to my therapist the other day and she said I have PTSD. And I cannot even say it's a lie. I have severe panic attacks. Every time I open my phone, that's why my phone is always on silent.
Yeah.
Because if my phone rings right now, I'll just have a very bad panic
panic.
attack. Because I know that it's hardly good news coming through. It's always bad news for me. So I have a therapist. And this year I'm planning to be more attuned to myself and more on self-care and more on just having a work-life balance, which I have not had for the last 2 years. I need to stop to let, naacha kazi at a particular time. Like the way when you leave this studio, you've gone home. I go home with my work. My work follows me everywhere. I need to now just... I'm planning on having a better work-life balance and not let my work bleed into my life, which it has, and it's really ruined a lot of, my life.
A lot of aspects of your own personal life. I completely understand. And I'd love to hear from you, Tom, in just a sec. We do have to take a break in just a second. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to let you know that our phone lines will be opening up as soon as we cross over into the top of the hour, which means if you've been listening and you've been touched by the conversations we're having, if you've been, if you've had this experience and you're hearing these stories and something has triggered you to call in and ask a question, this is your opportunity to do so. The number to call is 0719 012 600. As I've been mentioning, this is a very vital question. This is a very vital conversation for us to be having, because for many of us, we go about our day-to-day lives and we hear about these stories, we see them on the news, but because they're so far away from home, we really internalize what it means to have these experiences. And we have two amazing guests who are here sharing their stories, sharing the job that they have chosen, made a decision to pursue, to help other people and to pour good into the world. And if you have a question for them, this will be your opportunity to call. I'll remind you of the number again. It is 0719 012 600. And of course, we're going to be sampling your views on our social media handles, which is at SpiceFM KE on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I can see a few of the comments coming in. So as soon as we get back from this short break, we're going to take some time to actually chime in to some of those thoughts. Do not go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Don't touch that dial, because we've got more of the show coming up. We are the adults in the room.
Spice.
Two amazing guests in the building with us. One that goes by the name of Njoroge, who is the founder of Usikimye, and we have Tom Odula, who is a BBC Africa Eye crime reporter, who was actually the lead reporter behind a documentary that came out titled Kenya's Hidden Epidemic, something that you must definitely take time to watch, because it will shed a lot of light on what happens in this country, and many of us are not privy to that. So thank you again, guys, for coming in. Now, I do want to put a question to each of you as we wait for some calls to come through. I'm curious to sort of understand the discrepancy between the number of cases that are reported and the actual cases that actually happen. And I can imagine that there would be a discrepancy between what is actually reported and what actually happens on the ground. If that actually is the case, why do you feel some people may either choose not to report a case that it's something that has happened to them? What are some of those factors that influence someone's willingness to actually report?
Society.
Right.
The society and how it views issues like the normalization of violence, really. We are a very violent nation, honestly. If you really think about it, we abuse each other on social media. We do the most. We've normalized violence as a response. Somebody will just say something that has nothing to do with anything, and suddenly there's victim blaming, victim shaming, there is fat shaming, there will be all sorts of... And they'll always be like,
where did that come from?
where did all that come from? You know, like, we are just violent. It's just that we've been... I don't know. As an activist, I'm going to say we've been bullied into silence.
Right.
And the only way we know how to release our silence, instead of doing it to the right parties, which is generally how, the oppressive norms are, this country is oppressive. Even the police, who are really supposed to receive these people, they're already oppressed as a people. Like, now what do you want them to do? Generally, 1 is to 1,000 people.
Yes.
That's what policing should look like. What is it in Kenya? Is it 1 to 100,000 or 1 to 10,000?
1 to 10,000. The last time they did their survey.
Can you imagine? Now, this policeman that I'm going to report to, really, atafanya nini? You know, like, how much can he do? I really don't even just want to blame the police. I want to blame about, we have SOPs and, standards of procedure and all these things that have been enacted by the government. They can't be followed if there is no inadequate finances to actually follow through. So, of course, many people will not report because they know that the attitude that they're going to receive there is not there. And of course, if you're going through domestic violence, you are looking at very many channels of which you want to resolve your issues. One is to talk to your partner and communicate. Now, essentially, by the time a marriage is coming to blows, no one is communicating to the other, honestly.
Yes.
So, of course, you will come to your parents, maybe the guy's parents. They will come together, kikao, and sit and help you sort these issues. Well, they're sorting these issues to what end? To you reconciling, right? So the issues around GBV, whether you've been beaten black and blue, is always solved towards you coming back together as a unit, as a married.
We don't believe in splitting up.
Yes, we don't believe in splitting up. Divorce is a sin. And so on. And then, how do people look at divorced people? Not divorced men. Divorced men are hotcake.
Yes.
How do people
They're
look
called
at...
zaddies.
Yes. How do people look at divorced women?
Yeah.
Not good. I know.
Do
I'm
we-
a victim.
Yes, exactly. If you're divorced, my friends, first of all, your married friends, we will avoid you like a plague.
Hey,
Right.
That's so true. It's very true.
I mean, the churches you used to go to will be like, she failed to maintain her man. I mean, look at her.
Yeah.
And you are viewed as a failure. And let me tell you, when you're viewed as a failure, then you know, by association, you don't want to do it. So for me, as a woman who is in a bad marriage, I'd rather stick in this bad marriage. But outside there, you know, we are the picture perfect family.
Yes.
Actually, I can tell you, I look at so many picture perfect family, but I can see the, you know, the deadness behind the bright smiling pictures and nice social media that is giving you pressure to get married and so on. Not that I'm saying marriage is a bad thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I get
Marriage
what
is
you're
a
saying.
beautiful thing for the people that it works for.
Yeah.
I think. Should I stop? He's happily married.
Now, Tom, let me ask you, based on the film that you had put across, I noticed, and when Njoroge was talking about reporting is such an issue. There was a story that you highlighted where the gentleman had hacked a child, and this child had passed away, and his brother reported him. Now, do you get such cases, because this can go both of you, where a family member can decide, or a friend, I know, for example, Arnold has done a heinous act, and I have reported. How do these people, how are they treated in our society? Because many of us do not want to speak out. As Njeri has highlighted, I know so-and-so is beating his wife, or so-and-so had a black eye. Because it's a personal issue, we never talk about it. We know that's the husband who did that, and we don't want to say it. Those who report, or those who come out to defend, especially men, because I see men who defend victims of GBV are not treated well. How has been your experience now that you've been in the field and based on that particular film?
For the survivor you're talking about, she's
Yes.
called Mary Mugambi,
Yes.
who was hacked. It was really painful for me going through that. And she was almost killed, but unfortunately her daughter did not survive that attack. Her brother-in-law is called Peter. Is the one who reported his brother. His brother had attacked Mary and killed his own daughter and gone into the bushes to hide and called his brother that I've done something wrong and I'm hiding somewhere. And this guy, you know, out of the love of the child who was innocent, decided to give up his brother to the authorities.
Yes.
And he's been ostracized by his whole family.
Yes.
Till now.
The family did not understand?
If you would call him and ask him to go back home, he says he'll be killed. That's how bad it is.
Really?
They were okay, their son killing their daughter, their
Their
grandchild.
grandchild.
But they're not okay because the brother reported his brother.
Yes.
Yes.
I could not imagine
That's the general attitude, though.
the severity of, or even the extremity of this. I thought, you know, like generally I thought it's, you know, like men bullying others, like, hey, why are you snitching out? But to the point where your own father disowns you and issues death threats.
Your father issues because you put his son in jail.
In jail. This guy tried to organize the burial of his niece, and his father came and disrupted it.
You're joking.
Like a fundraising.
Yeah.
He came and told the guys to leave. This guy is contributing money for himself.
Wow.
He's the only one who, you know, he gave up his land so that his niece can be buried.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did not even want her buried there.
And that's supposed to be their blood.
Their blood.
I will say this. I'm not surprised.
I was shocked.
Because you've seen that on the ground.
Because especially for me, in matters of sexual violence, we didn't cover sexual violence, we just covered a lot of GBV.
Yes.
But one part of GBV is sexual violence.
Yes.
Where children, especially children, are molested. Do you know who covers up the molesters?
The mothers and the fathers and the relatives. I've heard about that.
Yes. I remember one night I was in, Kwaniwapi, I don't even remember the name. We had gone, it was around 1 a.m. So we went with the police, deep down some valley. And then the mother to the perpetrator, and the child we're talking about was 4. And he had both, you know, raped her, both anally and vaginally. And this child had to be removed. The uterus and so on. And, you know, it's so many bad things. So now, do you know where the man was hidden? In his mother's house.
His mother was
Or
accommodating.
his mother knew what he had done. But that's his grandchild. I mean, this is such an attitude where you would rather protect your brother, who you know is beating his wife. And you'll even come to the wife and say it's her who caused it. Think about it. think about the attitude we have towards violence in this nation. And then you will realize that most people would rather not talk about it. And they would never, you do not want, it's a taboo. It's the fact that we do not want to speak about it. Now there are people like Njeri from Usikimie who are making you face the demons that you don't want to face.
Things that we don't want to hear.
Yes.
How do we sort out trauma bonding? You talked about trauma bonding where I know, for example, I am being abused. I know he's sexually abusing my child. Something is happening to me. But I'm so stuck. And I do understand and I got the explanation. But how does someone who finds themselves involved in trauma bonding try and detach? Is there a way out?
Now for you as your friends, the person, this is what I say to people. Because the people who are trauma bonded, until they are the only people who can detach.
Okay.
And people call me and tell me, my friend is being beaten, what do I do? And I tell them, has your friend called you to call me? And they're like, no. And I said, imagine I cannot call your friend and tell them to leave their husband. Naanzia wapi?
Or to leave that situation.
Or to leave that situation. This is what I want you to do. I want you to be there for your friend. I want you to remind them that they are loved, that they are special, that they matter. Keep on reminding them. Tell them, I know, I see you. Don't hide it. Just tell them, hey, Mary Appa, I know you don't want to talk about it, but I just want you to know that I'm here for you. That I'm here for you no matter what. And when you're ready, I will help you pack. And no matter even if they pack 100 times, they leave, they go, they come back, they leave, they go and come. No, why should you? This is your friend. You love them. You need to understand that whatever is happening into them is in their mind. It's psychological. They really do want to leave. They really know that the situation they're in is dire, but they are afraid.
Yeah.
There is so much fear. I know as somebody who walked away from a violent marriage, there is so much fear. Like, do you know how many times I left before I finally now one day just walked out without shoes, and I just walked and I never came back.
And that's how you walked.
Yeah.
I just left. That day I was like, you know what? I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And one day I just walked out like a mad person and I went. So we need to let these people know that there are options. There is hope. We have a counseling line that we give to people. Talk to a therapist. And talking to that therapist doesn't necessarily mean you will leave today. It just means that for that minute, you have felt comfort, you have felt heard. These are people whose voices have not been heard in a very long time. Don't assume that just because somebody is being beaten, that is the first time they were beaten.
Yes.
They were already berated, they were already being, abused, being gaslit, being told all sorts of things. Their self-esteem is on the floor. You need to be the person who's walking with them as a friend. You need to be the person that just tells this person, I see you. If they want to run, let them run. Don't even give them any advice. Just tell them, then tell them, what do you want us to do? Let it come from them. What do you want us to do? Do you want to talk to Sikimia? Do you want to talk to these people? What do you think we should do?
Yes.
So that they feel that
Just
they have
give them
the
the support.
autonomy, that all you're doing is supporting them.
Yeah.
And support them to the last. Wakipak tunapak.
Wakirudi,
Tunaenda,
tunarudi.
tunarudi tu. Unamwambia tumerudi, sawa basi. We are back here. Let us be back.
Yeah.
Don't leave them at halfway through the journey and you're like, oh God, Susan is back again. No, work with Susan. Tell Susan it's okay. Okay, tumerudi kwa Juma. Sawa, tuende. Haya. When you're ready to leave again, I will be here. And let me tell you, there's nothing more beautiful than that.
Yeah.
I have seen that work.
Yeah.
Just channel them. Always tell them, Akinikoto, I'm just checking on you today. How are you feeling? You good? Okay, just checking on you. And people like that are like, wow, I'm still valid. Because they're so used to be devalued. They're so used to being diminished. They're so used to entering that. It could be even a CEO. But in that house, when they enter, women in high power jobs, they really have it rough.
Yes, most of them are abused, but they don't speak out.
They will not speak about it.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of value in you painting it the way that you have, because I think it's very easy for us to, especially if we're on the outside looking in, it's very easy for us to say, when we see our friend go back to what we deem to be an abusive relationship, and we start thinking, what's wrong with this person? Why do they keep going back? But I think rarely do we actually understand that psychological process of weaning yourself off of something that has been so familiar for so long, and how much of a process that is. And I think the more that we can have conversations like this, where if you are a friend to somebody who is experiencing this, being equipped with the tools and the know-how and what to say to help them navigate that it's very critical. I kind of relate it, or I equate it to if you have someone who's experiencing depression, if you just say to them, oh, you have to smile more, like that is not a constructive way to help somebody who's experiencing that. So the more that we can be equipped to know how to actually handle conversations like that as friends of people who are experiencing gender-based violence, the better we can be to actually help guide them through that process. So we do have to take another break, ladies and gentlemen, in just a second, but the number to call is 0719-012-600. I've seen a few calls come through. We just want to give our guests the opportunity to share their insight and their knowledge and their expertise in the field in which they have worked in. If you are just joining us, we're having a conversation on gender-based violence today and the effect that it has on our society, on our families, and what we can do to reshift the paradigm of this conversation in our country. Do not touch that dial. We're going to be right back. If you have a question for us, get your phone ready, because as soon as we play this Kelly Clarkson song, it'll be your opportunity to give us a call. Don't go anywhere. We are the adults in the room.
Spice.
Gentlemen, if you are just joining us, we are the adults in the room. We've been having a very educative and informative conversation here today with two very special guests. One that goes by the name of Njoroge, who is the founder of UC Kimye. And of course, we have Mr. Odula, who's in the building, who's the crime reporter for BBC, who's actually the head reporter behind a documentary that has recently been released titled The Hidden Epidemic in This Country. And I'm so excited to have you guys here. You've been really educating us on so many things, and we're having a very important conversation. So as we get back into the conversation, I know, Barbara, you have a question.
Tom, what's the biggest, or what do we call it, biggest problem in our modern day society when it comes to GBT?
It's deterrence, I guess, for me. The lack of cases being taken up and being prosecuted to the end where the perpetrator ends up in jail. If you remember some time back, I can't remember, was it 2015? When there was this movement of men tearing
Yes,
I dress my choice.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I mean, when
they were
the
attacking ladies in the streets for how they are dressing.
For how they dress. When a group of men was taken to court and was slapped with a huge sentence.
It stopped
Immediately. You understand? When the president spoke about it and there was action on the ground, when the police arrested a group of men who had done some very vile acts, and they were taken to court and slapped, I don't know, with a 20-plus year sentence or something. It stopped.
Yes.
But we don't see these GBV cases getting the similar attention. You just need to have a train of cases going to court and people seeing the result of their actions. They need to know the law exists.
Yeah.
A lot of these perpetrators don't think even there's a law
They
against it.
feel like they can circumnavigate it or get away with it.
Yes. Because of the bribery culture here.
How about you, Njeri?
And also, the other thing is, do you know how lenient the court is? Had this girl, she was a model actually, and her husband, is even a husband, her boyfriend really beat her up and really beat her up on the face, which is what was giving her the money. And really he wanted to ruin her. And I mean, it was bad. She's this very, very light girl. So you can imagine how the bruises were. Me, I saw her, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And you know, tulienda kotini, and he was fined 10,000.
What?
And I mean, he had brutally beat this chick up.
Then
And she
only
was
10,000.
pregnant. And he really brutalized her. And I think that was the first day I was slapped with the reality of how bad, of how much they just paid. Nilikwambia na nitakuchapa tena. As we were in court, Makadara, when he just walked out and he just told her, nitakuchapa tena. I told her, you know what, chick, we're going to the safe house. You're not safe. Until we can be able to get you out of the area where you're living, I think, Chile, let's run. That's the thing I have seen. There is nothing to deter people. And then when you go to court, then the families of the perpetrator, who is your ex-husband, come to you. And even your own family, and they beg you. And they tell you, please drop this matter.
It's not cultural.
It's not cultural. Sasa, what kind of a show is this? Sijui nini.
Father of your children.
Father of your children. What will your children say? Hey, what will people in my church think about me? What will the neighbors? And so on and so forth. Even your friends. And so, unapata these cases never go anywhere.
The thing that fascinates me about this is it's so heavily focused on what the external are going to say as opposed to the safety
No.
of the person that's, of the survivor. It's far less focused on their well-being and what is good for them. Even if this is my son, even if this is my brother, my sister, whoever it is, I am more focused on what the world is going to say about this situation rather than the safety of this person, And that, for me, I think it sits very uncomfortably, because at the end of the day, if this is somebody who has been married into your home, into your family, on an ideological level, we want to believe that you are one of us and we will protect you. But ultimately, those lines still seem to be very clear that you're not, quote unquote, a part of our family. Therefore, when a situation like this arises, we'll handle this differently, and we'll still protect our own at the end of the day.
I think for anyone who's been divorced, I think they're very well aware that the minute you divorce their brother or mnawachana, you are shown
That's
like you
it.
were never even. In fact, we had seen these habits.
Yes.
We had seen you. We told you.
Yes.
We knew you were never good enough for our son. Yeah, we knew. We saw.
You're really castigated, and the lines are drawn, battle lines.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, people don't talk to you, and you're wondering, what did I do to them?
And you were friends. You were
Yeah.
even like maybe at one point you were paying school fees.
Yeah.
You were participating.
Yes.
In fact, you were doing all the things that you can do to be a good daughter-in-law.
Yes.
Ndo siku utajua good daughter-in-law
Yes.
is exactly that.
Yeah.
The law will come and the daughter will be gone. Yes.
Njeri, you talked about safe houses, and you had started on our previous link about it, and also mentioned, how do safe houses work if someone is going through it or would just like to know?
A safe house is general. It's just a house, like a home, like any other home. But the difference between this and a children's home is that our homes are for survivors of GBV, and in particular women and children.
So they accommodate both.
Yes, I mean, if you've been beaten and you've been thrown out, sasa ndakwambia upeleke watoto wapi?
You have to just show up with my own.
You show up with your baggage,
Yeah.
which are your babies. So basically, it's a home, and the women run it. Of course, it's just a home. They wake up, they have breakfast.
Yeah.
Is it hidden to the public?
Yes.
Or is it in places where people know that this is a safe house?
Actually, nobody knows what the hell goes on there. I think the neighbors think it's a children's home. I hear that. An orphanage. Like if you came to look for us, you'd never know who we are.
You don't have signposts or
Of
anything.
course not. There is not. We are deep interior places that you will have to drive. You will have to put it. That notwithstanding, we have been raided by the police and I have
For
been
that?
arrested several. Yes, because
You're accommodating other people's wives
Yes.
who have reported them.
Yes.
You see how now people are being used badly.
So,
How was that experience? Please share.
Yeah. And I think for those that might not understand that, can you explain why that is now a problem? If you are protecting the safety of women and children, why is that a cause for the place to be raided?
Before there was an understanding of what safe houses were.
Yes.
As far as the police were concerned, I don't even think they really know. But as far as they were concerned, I was trafficking women and children.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
of course, that is what I was
That
arrested
is what
for.
you're summoning.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was arrested for.
Officially.
Officially.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at you. Really? You are helping people, now you've become a trafficker.
Kwanza nilikuwa namba huyo the boss trafficker. That
Ndio huyo mama.
Ndio huyo mama. They got me at a wedding, my friend.
Are you
Really?
serious?
Yes, in all my wedding finery.
And you have slayed yourself.
I had slain that day. And here I was being arrested, being thrown kwa gari nini.
So people even don't know why you're trafficking
You
is
know
the
what I
thing.
told them? Please, this is my friend's wedding.
To
I'm
slay.
begging you in the name of God, I am coming down.
Just-
Because the wedding was in our house. I said, I'm coming down. Come
Yes.
arrest you. I will come into the car without any commotion. I'm a grown woman.
Yes, yes.
I will do this
Don't
very
just
well.
spoil
Just
someone's
do
wedding.
not spoil somebody's wedding by coming. Yeah. I even told them I can drive myself to the police station. I mean, I came here. I will drive myself. I do
Yeah.
not have an issue.
Yeah.
And so I went to the police and then I got arrested. Nini.
Sorry, darling.
Then they traumatized the whole safe house. Can you imagine?
Are you serious?
Like there were 20 police.
What was the specific reason they were doing?
Eh?
Why
They were
did
looking
they-
for that particular woman who we had hidden.
Because now the spouse was on looking for them.
Yes.
So and the spouse
Do you
conspired
know
with
they had
other
arrested
people.
the Uber driver who brought her?
Yes.
So the Uber driver had to bring them where they ulimpeleka wapi.
Yet this person had been violent to this particular person.
That was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my entire life. The worst. This person just did things to that woman that I can never even call them.
And the authorities never saw that. They actually opted to raid you. And
The beautiful thing is, before you come to a safe house, we always tell you, go and report.
Mm.
We will not take you with an unreported case.
Oh,
So that we are also secure in what we are doing. So we had reported, this woman had like 15 OBs.
and still they raided you people.
They did not check. Kwani sasa wewe ukienda kwa polisi unataka kushikisha Njeri, do you need anything really?
No, and you
just
and
need
you
to
have
go
the
and say I stole or
muscle.
something. And you have the muscle. The husband had a good financial muscle. So my friend, they came. 20 police. They were lifting tables and beds and just, telling those women that the way they just stay there to be fattened by Njeri and running away from their husbands and all sorts of things. They arrested the safe house ma'am. Then they came to the Nini. Then they arrested me. Then we went to the police station, my friend.
You and your squad.
Me and my safe house mom. My safe house mom had already been taken. Me, they came for me later. Now, can you imagine? Me, I did not know that Kenyan police cells have buckets. Bro.
Oh, you're joking.
I've heard about it, but I've not experienced. So you had the...
And the last person is the one who is supposed to go and pour the bucket.
You're joking.
I was in absolute, I was like, Jehovah, I'm not helping people after this.
At that point, you started doubting and asking yourself questions.
No way. If I ever get myself out of this, because the police had put, they had sold me fear. I was afraid. I wasn't this brave person I am. Excuse sijalingi mwambia, iko wapi gari?
Now you have the courage. That was your initiation
That
process.
was my initiation. Excuse me,
The women won't put you in a cell.
they won't even put me in a cell.
Because
Me
she's
back.
going to cause a revolt inside.
Yes.
Yeah, inside.
Nowadays they know me. Now I'm a whole activist, yani. Nowadays I'm like,
Wow.
sitoi viatu.
I'm going in with them.
I'm going with the shoes. Show me where the Constitution says. That day I was terrified. I was just sitting there alone.
Yeah.
So it's been an adventure.
I'm sorry for that. And I just thank God we can even laugh about it right now and the strength that you have picked up over the years.
Yeah.
You're doing
Yeah.
a good job.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, we really do value that, and I think sharing this insight, because this is an element that we never see. We don't go to safe houses. We don't have that experience, and obviously they're safe houses for a reason. So to hear what it takes to actually run them and some of the trials and tribulations you have to deal with it's very inspiring. So thank you so much for that. We do have to take another quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be right back after this short song. Do not touch that dial. I see all the people trying to get through. We're going to be endeavoring to answer your calls as soon as we get back from this short break. Do not go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We are the adults in the room.
Spice.
Just joining us, we are the adults in the room. We have two special guests in the building today discussing gender-based violence. The first one is Njeri Migwi, who is the founder of UC Kimya. And then we have investigative reporter Mr. Odula, who's in the building to talk to us about, and I think the one thing that I really like is your approach to the actual BBC documentary, specifically just your willingness to kind of go into the depths of this country and really see it, actually understand what it's like on the ground. Because as I've been saying, we see these reports, and maybe when we're watching it on TV or online, there's a level of disconnect that we have from what actually happens. But highlighting it in the way that you did, I think, is very inspiring, and it really shed light to the importance of this conversation. So I do have a question for you and Njeri, specifically around the conversation that you have with a lot of the survivors that you take into the safe houses. I can imagine that you'll meet people at different stages of this decision to actually leave an abusive scenario. How do those conversations usually happen, and how do you know when someone is actually ready to say, you know what, I'm actually willing to step away from this scenario and I'm willing to go with you? How does that process actually work?
You see, for us, we actually do rescues.
Right.
Which is a very different thing.
Okay.
Because this is a woman who just calls us in the middle of the night and tells and appeals and says, Njeri, help me. So we do carry such kind of rescues. And then sometimes you take people at that point from sometimes it's from hospital where they've been injured and they have nowhere to go. And back home with their parents, they're not accepted to come back. So we also pick when they have just been beaten, or police bring them. Nowadays we have friendships with police.
You've made friendships.
Yes. Ambulances from hospitals do bring the victims to us. And we don't even have enough space for everybody. It's not big. We take maximum is 20. And this 20 in a house includes children. So you can see how...
So there are moments you have to reject some people.
No.
Every day.
Unless we have to anyway. Every day. Sometimes you're full, even the sofas have people and so on and so forth. And we really do not want that scenario because we want people to be in an environment where they can heal at their pace. So we keep you for about 8 weeks. And then, we 8 weeks, we are hoping that you have planned yourself accordingly because we do not have the resources to do much more than what we are able to do right now because we are not funded.
Yeah.
We actually rely on the Kenyans through our pay bill to keep our costs going. Yeah, and our cost is heavy and costly.
I can imagine.
Yeah, because you can imagine people in a home. It's not a regular home ati tu watu wamekuja huko kuenjoy. No, these people are sick. They have to go to hospitals, so their costs even just for them being there. And when the time they're there, we have to make sure the kids go to school. Just across, there's schools there, so we make sure the kids go to school because we also do not want them to be there and be gloomy and feel like it's the end of the world. Yeah, so we try as much as possible to just make sure that we give them a conducive environment that is almost like home, but it is not home, because it's a communal place.
Yeah,
and they cook, they eat, they read. For those ones who love reading, we farm. We have our own vegetable farm. We do sewing, just things to keep them busy while they're there. There's a psychologist that comes.
Those within the first 8 weeks?
Every week there's a psychologist. We visits and talks to the survivors in the home. So that, because just being there and you're not being given psychological help, sioni vile utasaidika. Yeah, so we do have that. And for those people that believe in God, there is spiritual nourishment. We have visiting, pastors and so on. And so we try as much as possible to just make sure that they get what they need for the time that they are with us. Yeah.
I understand. And for yourself, Tom, how has your investigative research specifically on gender-based violence in Kenya compared to maybe, say, other projects of a similar nature that you have researched? Have you sort of had experiences where maybe research in this topic in another region or another country has been more severe? Could you talk a little bit about maybe some of the other projects that you've worked on of a similar nature?
There's nothing like this I've done before.
Right.
The closest I did was I used to be a full-time reporter for the Associated Press. So I did a story on the impact of the lockdown on children. And I went into Dandora, and there were these young girls, 15, 16, and 13, who, since the lockdown and schools closed, they were selling themselves to men.
Right.
To help their mothers feed the other children. And this story really, it's one of those stories that hurt me even more than seeing like maybe 50 dead bodies and things like that. Because when I interviewed them, they say they had been out of school for maybe 3 months, but they can't remember the number of times they have had unprotected sex.
Right.
Plus, they cannot remember the number of times they've been raped.
Right.
In 2 months, 3 months, 2 months. They cannot count. The customers they serve pay them 100 shillings. Right. So if they get 500 shillings from a customer, it's a good day. And many of those people don't pay. They just leave or beat them up. And I was shocked. It's a tale of two cities. I have the privilege of living in a safe environment, but being in all these places where people don't see. And it's important they see it, because it comes down to the whole issue of human rights in this country and where and the value we put on human rights and life. We are in a terrible place. People have been conditioned to violence, to abusing others. And there's no respite. Like for these girls, when schools open, would they go back to school? No. You've been exposed to other things that make it very difficult to
how can you? How can you?
So
your innocence has been stolen. You're no longer the same person.
And that's the closest I came to that, to what I did with the GBV documentary. But before that, it's been stories about young men, especially. Those are the ones which I personally took up because I felt there's a similar problem of young men being killed illegitimately just because you don't have a job or you're trying to hustle. And you don't have anything in your pocket, which means, to pay off the police. And so that cause I took up really strongly before. But now I realize it's a much bigger problem.
Yes.
And the bigger problem actually is GBV.
Yes. Yes.
There are no real statistics on how many people die every year from children, either from being victimized or the effects of being victimized.
Yes.
Which is like some people commit suicide or drink themselves to a grave.
Yes. Yes.
Because they went through some trauma which they can't get over.
Is that just because we don't have the necessary resources to track this information, or is it a case of, as we were saying earlier, some people don't want to report certain things that happen?
We can't blame the survivors for not reporting.
That's true.
The system is I wanted to curse, but anyway,
It's skewed.
It's
skewed.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, the system does not present a friendly face, and mainly, and it's intertwined with several issues that have been captured in a report by Human Rights Watch, which include bribery. You go there, and if you don't have anything to give, your case is not.
It's not heard.
It's not heard. The perpetrator will have, more say when it comes to how things are reported or the case is reported than you who survived the incident, because the way things are is Boniface Mwangi says usually you're guilty until proven
Guilty.
No.
Rich.
Yeah, you're guilty until proven rich.
Yes.
Wow, that's
He keeps
very
on saying that,
powerful.
yeah.
That's very powerful.
But it's the honest
Because
truth.
when you're considered,
It's the honest
if
truth.
you have the resources or the muscle,
Yeah.
all of a sudden the case can turn into something else.
Yes.
We had this case, the one I was telling you, this lady, I will not mention her name. Her husband was a PS. Let's end it at that because I do not want to kesha kuwekwa kwa.
Yes.
But this woman was being beaten black and blue every other day, and the case went to court, and nothing has ever happened. Every day, because now she no longer has the financial muscle that she had when she was a PS as well.
Yes.
And he's made it his business to run interference in that case because it's a current sitting.
From the court system to the police to everything. She's
And
trying to
she
touch.
told me, and I told her, Mom, I'm too small for this. I like me. Because the minute I started touching on her case, I said, I get death threats. I do not need additional death threats.
Yeah.
And you find that, yes, you're guilty until proven rich. It is the truth.
First, I'd like to thank Njeri Mwigwe. Did you know she won the humanitarian global award last year for the
Wow.
work that she does?
Congratulations.
Not many people have the heart of that, and we always know the best artists who sang that different song.
Yeah.
but we never know the people who do things behind the scene.
Yes.
Now, Tom, thank you so much for highlighting this story. Is it something you are going to dig deeper? The Kenyan epidemic, the hidden epidemic, or is it something now that you've touched, you want to take a back seat?
No, I was just thinking about it, and I'm looking at a different angle of how I can approach this subject to aid victims, to make significant changes in the way cases are handled. Because once that is like a huge obstacle in the pursuit of justice. Just the initial reception would do a lot good for the victims if it changed.
Yes. Yes.
In the sense that I was in Njeri for a whole day, and with a small kid who was like 3 years old, like from 8 to 8 p.m., at night or 9. And if Njeri wasn't there and the cameras were not there, nothing would have been done. You see,
You spent over 10 hours in some place and still it delayed and it moved because of cameras.
And of
So
cameras.
what if someone didn't have those cameras or didn't have the two of you?
Or Njeri pursuing, pushing, every office, knocking. She's very aggressive, knocking, and she doesn't take no for an answer. For that child to get justice. If that hadn't happened, that guy would not have been arrested. I can confidently say that.
Yeah.
And it goes to show our priorities. When a VIP is having a function, the amount of security.
The amount of media coverage.
Yes, also. Exactly.
Yeah, let's not lie.
Yes.
We are part of the system.
The amount of security. Yet a 3-year-old child is molested and will never be the same again. He may even become a molester himself if he doesn't get psychological help. And nothing.
Yeah.
In fact, it was worse, but I'm not going to mention it because I'm not allowed. And we didn't cover that part. But it's a huge challenge for the victims to report. And I think the media needs to put more focus on these stories other than just the politics, which has been the same for the last 30 years, the same players.
Nothing has changed.
Nothing
really.
has changed, yeah. But in our society is dying.
Yeah.
GBV is killing homes. It's killing people. Like somebody goes through trauma that will ultimately kill them or kill a part of them. They'll never be the same again.
Yeah.
We don't have the psychological help out there, but at least we can get them justice. Justice is should be guaranteed because it's something that is guaranteed in the Constitution.
Yes, yeah. Well, we do have to take another quick break, ladies and gentlemen, but we're going to be right back in just a second. We still have more of the show to go. Do not touch that dial. We are the adults in the room.
Spice.
If you are just joining us, you've missed a very informative conversation, but we still have our guests for a few more minutes before we have to release them to go live their lives and take care of the people that are in their lives. But I guess before we actually wrap up the show, I would like to sort of touch on this idea of culture. And what I've noticed is there's a cultural ideology for some people where they see, let's say, gender-based violence as a norm, and we've spoken about this a little bit. I've seen some cases of people who believe that this is a means of being in a relationship. This is part of the process of being in a marriage or being in a relationship. How can one identify and recognize that they might actually be in an abusive relationship? Because there's many of us who will experience this and say, this is just part of marriage, or this is part of being a wife. How can we sort of navigate that conversation and actually help people understand that, no, this is actually abuse, this is actually violence, and there's something that needs to be done about it?
Okay. Number one, please learn red flags. What are the red flags in a marriage?
Right.
How is your communication? How is the anger? What does this person do? Do you flinch every time? Just small things like those ones. Because it doesn't just happen. He cannot just come in one day and start beating you.
Yes.
There must have been sort of small steps of violence. Even when you're dating, you probably notice them and overlook them and you're like, you were excited. And I'll also say this to people who are dating before I even get into the people who are married. These dates you people go for, mnakuanga mnaambiana nini? What are you telling each other?
Sweet nothing.
That sweet nothing has to stop. You need to tell each other who you are, what you are. You need to know, how does this person respond to violence?
Right.
Very important question. Like, baby nikikukasirisha utadu, anakwambia nakuchapa kofi. Run, sister, run. Run, brother, run.
He's
Like,
told you the
run.
truth.
He's just told you the truth. The first indication of violence. What are his opinion about women? What are his opinion about women leadership? What does he think? You just don't go and get married to people and you do not even know these people. Nini hizi mnafanya? Like, I don't understand it.
Yes.
Ajay, like, you should be talking about, what is your politics? Do we even agree? What is your religion?
We've become so materialistic, we don't see certain things. It
My
blocks.
God. And these children that we are going to have, how many? And you are busy saying to Anakwame, I will have 3 children.
Yeah.
You should already be like, Allah, I do not have an opinion. How do we budget? Do you talk about these things, Ama? You are just like, honey, baby.
Right.
What are you talking about in these relationships?
Yeah.
What is your guiding principle? We should be talking. Like, what happens if I die? I tell you I want to be cremated. You're busy telling me you have to be buried in my father's farm. You already need to know that you do not have a say in this relationship.
Right.
And if you do not, you cannot be with somebody who you communicate. What is your communication? How do you forgive each other?
Yes.
This should work for both marriages and not marriages, even friendships. What is your level of forgiveness? How do you forgive each other? What place is it that I have crossed? You know, you need to ask this person, what is your red line? That if I cross this, nikubaya.
Your ultimate betrayal.
Your ultimate. These are things and conversations that as wives, as husbands, we need to be having with each other.
I understand.
What button do you know that if I push that button, hii nyumba tutalala nje sisi wote? What is it?
Yeah.
And then there are people who do not beat people.
Yes.
But my God, the emotional manipulation and abuse. Unaingia kwa nyumba, mtu anakuambia you look like an elephant. And you're like, what? What did you just
Someone
call
once
me?
told me I look like a baby hippo.
Lord have mercy.
So
And
yeah,
people
the
can be
emotional
so
abuse
cruel.
can be very bad.
I have accepted it. Mimi kwanza naambia watu I'm a baby hippo. Deal with it. And because somebody has called you so many names and you start believing it, has emotionally manipulated you that you feel like you're nothing. You know, and we need to look at this and ask yourself as a person, am I valued? Am I wanted? Am I heard? Am I seen? Or am I an invisible person? Remember those things we used to have when we were kids? Jesus is an invisible. That thing used to traumatize me. Like it was scary for me. Like he's an invisible guest in this house. I used to
Then
be
you're
like,
wondering, where is
wow, if he's stealing sugar, he's going to see me. So are you an invisible guest in your house?
Yes,
Or do you just leave because this is a marriage?
Yeah, I understand. Now, we do only have 3 minutes left in the show, so I want to give you some time to just plug, obviously, your organization and any products and services and initiatives that you're each working on just before we wrap up the show. So please feel free.
Okay. So my organization is called Usikimia. We are Usikimia on Instagram. Usikimia is USIKIMYE. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you'll find us there. As I said, can I say this? We rely on the goodwill of Kenyans. Yes. So we do have an active PayBill. Turushia kakitu 891-300. The usual Mchanga one, but the account number is Usikimia.
Repeat the number again.
891-300. It's an Mchanga number, and the account is Usikimia. And we do have a toll-free line, which is 0800-000-999. Very easy, 0800-000-999. If you are in a violent relationship, there are therapists on that line. Talk to them. Help is at hand. Stop staying in bad relationships. And if you want to volunteer or whatever, you look for us, talk to us. We are available.
Fantastic.
Thank
and Tom, if people want to get access to the BBC documentary, where can they go to access that?
YouTube, Facebook, just type Africa Eye, you'll get it. I'm also going to start a GoFundMe page for Mary Mugambi. She needs physiotherapy and some money to pay for her son's school fees.
Yes.
Because she's been left without, working ability because of the injuries she suffered. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, same name, Tom Odula, for those who want to follow me and my work in the future. And I can promise you that we will try and make a change on this issue of GBV.
Yes.
Just using media as a platform. We're going to do some investigative stuff and see how we can change the institutions that should serve and protect people who, not even people, just citizens in general, but especially victims and survivors of GBV.
Fantastic. Well, I want to take a quick second to thank you guys so much for coming in and for being willing to share your stories and educating the population on this issue. It is a very important and critical conversation that we have to have, and the more that we can have it, I feel the closer we can get to a place where we can actually start seeing real change in this country and across this continent. So I want to thank you so much, especially for your bravery and for your willingness to share your story and your insight. To everyone that has chimed in on the conversation on our social media handles, we want to thank you so much for your insight and for your input. I hope you have enjoyed the show, because I know we have, and we've learned a lot. Now, I hope you are ready for an evening of uninterrupted music right here on SpiceFM, and we shall see you tomorrow from 7 p.m. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Take care.
SpiceFM.